When was the last time you took this test? I ended up having to take it now over 2 or 3 years to make sure my eyesight's not getting any worse than it already is. I took it most recently last year, and we were sitting there looking at that chart and thinking to myself, there may come a time when I can't read that top line anymore, or even worse, when I can no longer remember that that top line is always E. I've taken that test quite a few times, and I remember the first time I failed it. I was in the 4th grade, and we were down in the church, the school's nurse's office, and we went down to the class for a routine exam. I failed it. So I find myself at the eye doctor, and then I find myself at the glasses store, and the next thing you know, I've got a pair of glasses. And I wore glasses all the way up until I was about 18 years old. At the age of 18, I all of a sudden thought, you know what, I think I might actually look better if I wear contacts. And so I went to get contacts. Dad tried to talk me out of it. When we had them, you're only going to wear it 10 years. You're going to be back in glasses. It's going to be a waste of your money and your time. Don't even bother. And I told him, no, I look better. I think I'm going to wear it. I'm going to use them. I'm not going to walk away. 10 years later. And I still think I look better in contacts. Aaron thinks I look better in glasses. So glasses it is. If there's anyone in the Bible who's going to know about vision problems, it's going to be the Apostle Paul. Paul, as you recall, was once known as Saul. He was once known for having power and prestige in the Jewish synagogues. He was known amongst the Jewish leaders. He was also known for the persecution of Christians with joy and gladness. And it was during that time, on the road to Damascus, on his way to arrest the Christians that were there, that Paul had a miraculous encounter with Christ. He struck him blind. I remember that Paul was blind for 3 days. He was cared for, he was nurtured, he did nothing on his own. And he was only restored to sight when a follower of Christ, or a Christian, the very person that Paul was intending on arresting, came to him, prayed over him, and God restored his sight. Now some say that what happened to Paul was just, he saw the glory of the Lord. So he had such an overwhelming experience that he literally had a physical reaction. I like to think that his blindness came with a purpose. I think it was an intentional act from Jesus to help symbolize the blindness in Paul's heart. You see, striking him blind, striking him blind, put him at the mercy of others that care for him. And it was meant to symbolize the pain, persecution, the blindness in his heart that brings about the pain and persecution of Jesus and Jesus' followers. So when Paul's vision is restored, it symbolized the opening of Paul's heart to the love of Christ. So yes, Paul knows all about vision. He talks a lot about it in his letters. It's all stemming from his Damascus Road experience. He's continually drawing back on it. He's continually looking back onto this important time in his life. And so when Paul says in his letter to the Ephesians, when he prays for the eyes of our hearts to be enlightened, he's praying for our eyes, for the eyes of our heart to be restored, so that we'll no longer be blind to the pain of others. And I'm open to the love of Jesus, and to the love of neighbor, and the restoration that Christ brings in our life and in our world. See, Paul knew that when your eyes are focused on power, when your eyes are focused on riches, when your eyes are focused on possessions, it is then that the eyes of our heart, our very ability to love God and love neighbor, become blind. And so I came across this, a friend of mine posted this on social media, on Facebook this past week, and it rings pretty true. People were created to be loved. Things were created to be used. The reason the world is in chaos is because things are being loved and people are being used. That's exactly what Paul was doing in his Damascus experience. He loved power, he loved fame. And so he would arrest a small group of people, a small Christian group, in order to gain the things that he loved. So he was blind in the heart. So he used people to get things that he loved. When have we become that? Who is it that we're using? If you ever go down to Dallas, Texas, I would encourage you to swing by my seminary, Southern Baptist University. It truly is one of the most glorious campuses you'll ever see. It looks amazing. Which is great because, as you know, I come from Texas A&M University for my undergrad, and the campus of Texas A&M is as ugly as sin. It is an absolute eyesore. So it's great to go to another school where I can make that up. SMU sits in the cities, in the park cities of Dallas, and they're considered to be the wealthiest areas in the state of Texas. And the eastern boundary of the park cities rests on Highway 75. And were you to go over the overpass, take an overpass across 75 to the other side, you would find the most impoverished area in the area of Dallas. You would see families living under poverty, see the homeless on any number of corners asking for money. You will not find them over on the Park City side of the highway. Why is that? Well, it's simply because the police will literally pick them up and take them back to their side of the highway. So what is happening? A bubble is being created for the residents of the park cities, shielding them from poverty around them. So the residents of the park cities, it provides comfort. It provides people the opportunity to see only the people who are just like them. It allows them to turn a blind eye to the full reality of the world around them. So blindness of the heart is using people to get the things that we love. What's happening in the case of park cities. And not the poor being used to gain the bubble they love. The opening of the eyes of the heart for park cities, if God were to open their eyes of their heart, would be the opening of their awareness to neighbors around them, to move from being a bubble community to being a bubble community. But will opening the eyes of our heart allow us to see Him. So the United Methodist Church collects surveys on economic, religious backgrounds and beliefs for all churches. And so Lisa was kind enough to pull that information for me this week for this church, specifically, 2-mile radius of this church, what's the economic and religious aspects from 2 miles of this church. According to the survey, there's about 900 people who live within 2 miles of here. 25 of them live below poverty. Are those 25 going to be enough to ensure that our eyes remain open to the need to address poverty that exists around us? Will that be enough to allow us to address the nearly 10% of families that are living below poverty here in the state of Kansas? See, when the eyes of our hearts are open, we become open to God's love for us and to the world. God opens our heart to see when people are being used and when things are being loved. So when Christ joins you in your life journey, He will lead you in restoring people to be loved. He will lead you to open your eyes to see creation as God intended it to be. In the Bible, there's a pretty fascinating story about Moses. So Moses, as you may recall, is the leader of the Israelites. He's the one who leads them out of slavery in Egypt. He's the one who goes up the mountain and receives commandments from God. But he's also the one who, along with the rest of Israel, is guilty of sin, was guilty of turning against God, and so was punished by not being allowed to enter the promised land, the land that God had set aside for Israel. God did grant Moses one request, though. Moses was allowed to see the land from a distance, from on top of the mountain. He would be able to overlook the land and see what Israel will come to inherit. And so he would, in essence, die without being able to set foot in the land. So God took Moses to the top of Mount Nebo, and he allowed him to see the land that Israel would soon inherit. So God showed him Gilead, way in the north. He showed him Judah and Jericho, way in the south. Any story about that? My wife has been there to Mount Nebo. She's been able to stand on the top of the mountain, look out while the problem is still empty. You know what? You can't see Gilead in the north. You can't see Judah and Jericho in the south. Some of these places are 100 miles away. You just can't see them on your own. You need something else. You need God to give you sight. So in the same way that God opened the eyes of Moses to see beyond what was possible for him, God can open the eyes of our hearts to see beyond what is possible for us. Listen to the message that the confirmation class sang to you over there. They sang the song, "Open the eyes of my heart, Lord." Consider what it is that the confirmation class is asking of you in that song. Are you sure that you know what it means? When Jesus opened the eyes of Paul's heart, his life was radically changed from a life where people were used to get things he loved to a life where his power and fame were set aside for the sake of others. God reoriented his very life from the norm of this world, the norm that God intended the world to have. So I ask you today, will you be open to asking God to open the eyes of your heart? Will you ask God to put love of people or love of things? This is not a simple question. Asking for this is asking God to radically alter your life, reorder your priorities, and shift your values. So the things that you love most dear may be lost in light of the people that God calls you to love. It's a request that can't be made without understanding its implication. It's a request that can't be made without having a sincere and devoted heart to it. So for some, maybe that's not where you're at right now. That's okay. God will continue to be present in your life, continue to guide you and direct you, and continue to walk with you until you are able to ask the sincere heart of that. If you are willing to ask God to open the eyes of your heart, God will draw you close to Him. You will open your eyes, and you will see Him high and lifted up, shining glory, pouring out His power and love. So are you ready to love people over things? Are you ready to ask God to open the eyes of your heart? Please.
Please stand and join us in